The Admiral kept Vanna waiting for 2 hours before agreeing to another meeting. When the guards finally escorted her back to the command center, she found her counterpart studying tactical displays showing the progressive collapse of the dimensional barrier. 12 hours, the Admiral said without preamble. That's how long we have before the merger becomes irreversible. I hope you've used your time productively. I've been reviewing your archives, Vanna replied. All of them. The Admiral's hand stilled on her control interfaces. And what conclusions have you drawn? That you're not trying to save my timeline, you're trying to harvest it. Vanna stepped closer to the command throne. 17 different realities, all absorbed into your collective. How many more are you planning to consume? As many as necessary. The Admiral's tone carried no defensiveness, just the matter-of-fact certainty of someone who had moved beyond moral considerations. Every reality we integrate makes the whole stronger. Your timeline's peaceful achievements, combined with the military efficiency of the hegemony, would create possibilities neither could achieve alone. And the realities that refuse are eliminated before they can contaminate others with their suboptimal approaches. The Admiral finally looked up from her displays. Choice, Vanna, that's what you're really objecting to. You want to preserve the illusion that individual preferences matter more than collective survival. They do matter. They're what make us human. Humanity is a biological classification, not a philosophical position. What makes us important is our potential to grow, to adapt, to become something greater than the sum of our parts. The Admiral gestured to the tactical displays showing hegemony space. We've eliminated scarcity, conflict, and uncertainty across 17 star systems. Every citizen has purpose, security, and the opportunity to contribute to something larger than themselves. By destroying everyone who disagrees with your definition of purpose. By redirecting them toward more productive applications of their talents. The Admiral's voice hardened. I've seen what choice leads to, Vanna. Fragmentation, conflict, the kind of weakness that gets entire species exterminated by more focused civilizations. Vanna felt the weight of the philosophical chasm between them. Her counterpart had experienced trauma that had fundamentally altered her perception of reality. The loss of billions of lives, the near extinction of humanity. These events had burned away everything except the drive to prevent them from happening again. What if there was another way, she asked. A way to stop the Cathara threat without destroying the choice that makes life worth living. There isn't. The Admiral's response was immediate and final. I've run every simulation, analyzed every variable. The only successful outcomes involve sufficient military strength to deter aggression, combined with social unity that prevents internal conflict. Your simulations are based on your own experiences. What if you're wrong? I'm not wrong, I'm experienced. The Admiral stood and moved to a new display that showed real-time monitoring of Vanna's timeline. Look at your colonial fleet. Even now, they're integrating Cathara technology into their systems. Within 6 months, those same systems will be broadcasting detailed intelligence about human military capabilities to every hostile species in the galaxy. The display was showing exactly what Arya had confirmed, the slow, patient infiltration that would lead to catastrophe. Vanna could see colonial fleet engineers excitedly installing alien components into their ship's navigation systems, completely unaware that they were building the instruments of their own destruction. Then warn them, she said. Send a message through the dimensional barrier. Tell them about the Cathara threat. I did. 7 different timeline variations. In each case, they dismissed the warning as enemy propaganda or psychological warfare. People don't believe in dangers they haven't experienced themselves. The Admiral activated another control, and the display showed recordings of previous contact attempts. Vanna watched herself, or rather, other versions of herself, rejecting warnings about the Cathara threat with the kind of skepticism that seemed perfectly reasonable until it became fatal. Which leaves us with the original choice, the Admiral continued. Integration or extinction. Your timeline lacks the military strength to resist the Cathara. Mine lacks the diplomatic infrastructure to manage a peaceful galaxy afterward. Together, we can build something that combines the best of both approaches. Under your control, under optimal control. Individual preferences are subordinated to collective needs, but individual contributions are maximized through proper role assignment. The Admiral returned to her throne, settling into it with the weight of absolute authority. You would retain your rank and position, Vana. Your exploration experience would be invaluable in mapping new territories for expansion. Expansion into other timelines. Expansion into the infinite possibilities of the quantum multiverse. Every reality we integrate provides new variations on the human experience. We could become something unprecedented, a species that exists across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The vision was seductive in its scope. Humanity as a multidimensional civilization, drawing strength and knowledge from infinite variations of itself. But Vana could see the trap hidden within the promise. What happens when you run out of timelines to absorb? When every possible variation has been integrated into your collective? Then, we move beyond the multiverse itself. The Synthari left hints in their archives about structures that exist outside space-time entirely. Realities that follow completely different physical laws. Dimensions where consciousness itself has different properties. The Admiral's eyes held the fervor of someone who had glimpsed infinite possibilities and decided that all of them should belong to her. It was ambition on a scale that transcended ordinary megalomania. You're talking about consuming existence itself. I'm talking about optimizing it, bringing order to chaos, ensuring that consciousness develops along the most efficient possible paths. The Admiral leaned forward. Don't you see? This is what we were meant for, not to explore space but to organize it, not to discover new worlds but to improve them. Vana felt the terrible weight of understanding. Her counterpart wasn't evil, she was something worse. She was convinced of her own righteousness on a cosmic scale. Every atrocity was justified by the greater good. Every eliminated choice was a step toward perfect efficiency. I need to see the quantum field generators, Vana said finally. Why? Because if I'm going to agree to this integration, I want to understand exactly how it works. I want to see the technology that's going to reshape two universes. The Admiral studied her for a long moment. Very well. But you'll be accompanied by my security chief. And Vana, any attempt at sabotage will result in immediate termination. Understood. As they left the command center, Vana caught sight of a display showing the Wanderer's dream. Her ship had been completely stripped down, its components scattered across dozens of research stations. But Arya's quantum entanglement communicator was still intact, still maintaining its connection to her home timeline. She was going to need that connection for what she planned to do next. The quantum field generator chamber was a cathedral of perverted science. Synthari bioarchitecture merged with human engineering in ways that hurt to look at directly. Organic conduits pulsed with exotic matter, while crystalline matrices focused energies that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. Magnificent, isn't it? The Admiral's security chief was a tall woman named Commander Reese, whose augmented body incorporated technology from at least 4 different species. The original Synthari design could only manipulate space-time within a single reality. We've improved it to operate across dimensional boundaries. Vana studied the massive construct at the chamber's center. It was beautiful and terrible, a machine that could reach across the barriers between universes and reshape the fundamental nature of existence. According to the displays surrounding it, the device was currently operating at 37% capacity, gradually weakening the barriers between her timeline and this one. How long has this been running? She asked. Continuously for 18 years, Reese replied. The Admiral began the process shortly after we made contact with your timeline. Each quantum pulse weakens the dimensional barriers a little more, making eventual integration inevitable. And the other 17 timelines you've absorbed. Each integration makes the next one easier. The more realities we control, the more stable our own becomes. Reese moved to a control panel that showed real-time monitoring of dimensional stability. Your timeline is particularly valuable because of its peaceful development. Most conquered realities require decades of reconditioning to accept hegemony control. Yours will integrate much more smoothly. Vana nodded, keeping her expression neutral while her mind raced through possibilities. The quantum field generator was protected by multiple security systems, but it was also connected to every other major system on the ship. If she could cause a feedback loop in the quantum matrices. "Captain," Arya's voice whispered through her hidden communicator, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the ship. I think they're preparing for the final integration phase." "Don't touch anything," Reese warned, noticing Vana's movement toward the control panels. "The quantum fields are delicately balanced. Even minor disruptions could cause cascade failures." "What kind of failures?" "Best case scenario, we lose the ability to manipulate dimensional barriers for several months. Worst case, we destabilize the entire local multiverse and cause every nearby timeline to collapse into quantum foam." Vana felt a chill. How many timelines would that affect? Potentially infinite. The multiverse is more fragile than most people realize. That's why the Admiral's approach is so necessary, bringing order to chaos before chaos destroys everything. The rationalization was perfect. Even the possibility of universal destruction was being used to justify the hegemony's actions. But Vana could see the flaw in their logic. The quantum field generator wasn't just a tool for controlling dimensional barriers. It was a weapon of unprecedented power. In the wrong hands, it could destroy entire categories of existence. "I want to see the targeting systems," she said. "How do you select which timelines to contact?" Reese led her to another section of the chamber where holographic displays showed a map of the local multiverse. Thousands of timeline variations branched out from a central nexus, each one representing a different path of historical development. Most were marked in red, absorbed into the hegemony. A few showed yellow, targeted for future integration, and a very few were marked in black. "The black ones?" Vana asked. "Timelines too dangerous to contact. Realities where humanity developed along paths that would contaminate our own progress." Reese highlighted one of the black markers. "This one, for instance, achieved technological godhood but abandoned physical existence entirely. Attempting to integrate them would risk losing our own material anchoring. And this one," Vana pointed to another black marker. "Humanity never developed space travel. They turned inward instead, achieving perfect unity through collective consciousness. But their approach would destabilize our individual optimization protocols." Vana began to understand the true scope of the Admiral's vision. She wasn't just conquering realities, she was curating them. Timelines that didn't fit her definition of optimal development were either absorbed or eliminated entirely. "How many black-marked timelines have you destroyed?" 43, Reese replied without hesitation. Each one represented a developmental dead end that could have threatened the stability of the entire multiverse. By eliminating them, we've actually made reality itself more stable. The casual admission of genocide on a multiversal scale made Vana's stomach clench. Her counterpart hadn't just become a conqueror, she'd appointed herself as reality's editor, deciding which variations of existence were worthy of survival. "Captain," Arya's voice was urgent, "quantum energy levels are spiking across all systems. I think they're beginning the final integration sequence." Alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. Reese moved quickly to the control panels, her augmented fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "What's happening?" Vana asked. "Temporal fluctuations in your timeline. Something's destabilizing the integration process." Reese's expression was grim. "The dimensional barriers are strengthening instead of weakening." On the displays, Vana could see the quantum patterns that connected the two realities beginning to fluctuate wildly. Energy readings spiked and fell in chaotic patterns that suggested the entire system was approaching critical failure. "Admiral to all stations," the PA system crackled. "We're detecting interference from the target timeline, activating emergency integration protocols." "What does that mean?" Vana demanded. "It means we're going to force the merger through quantum bombardment," Reese replied, her hands flying over the controls. "The process will be less smooth than planned, but it will ensure successful integration." "And the cost?" "Approximately 20% population loss in both timelines. Acceptable casualties for such a significant operation. 20%. Billions of lives reduced to acceptable losses in a cosmic reorganization project." Vana felt rage building in her chest, but she forced herself to remain calm. There was still a chance to stop this, but only if she could reach the primary control systems. "I need to speak with the Admiral immediately," she said. "The Admiral is busy managing the integration. You'll wait here until—" The chamber shuddered as massive energies flowed through the quantum field generators. On the displays, Vana could see the barriers between realities beginning to buckle under the assault. Her timeline was fighting back, but it wouldn't be able to resist for long, which was when she made her choice. "Arya," she sub-vocalized, "remember what you said about cascade failures." "Captain, no. If you disrupt the quantum field generators while they're operating at this level, I'll destabilize the entire local multiverse." "I know," Vana smiled grimly, "but I'll also destroy the hegemony's ability to consume other timelines. Sometimes the only way to win is to make sure nobody can. The collateral damage will be less than what the hegemony will cause if they're allowed to continue." Vana moved toward the central control matrix, ignoring Reese's shouts of warning. "Besides, this is what choice looks like, the freedom to make decisions that might be wrong." She reached out and grasped the quantum stabilization matrix with both hands. The moment Vana's hands touched the quantum stabilization matrix, reality screamed. Energy beyond description flowed through her body as she became a conductor between dimensions. Every atom in her being was simultaneously existing in multiple states, experiencing every possible version of herself across the infinite span of the multiverse. She was an explorer, a conqueror, a scientist, a poet, a mother, a murderer. Every choice that had ever been made or could be made cascading through her consciousness in an overwhelming flood. But through it all, she held on to her purpose. The quantum field generators were designed to weaken dimensional barriers, but they were also connected to every major system on the Nexus. By introducing chaotic feedback into the quantum matrix, she could turn the ship's own power against itself. "Stop her!" Reese was screaming, but her voice seemed to come from very far away. "She's destabilizing the entire field structure." The chamber erupted in warning lights and alarms as the quantum field generators began to fluctuate wildly. On the displays showing the multiverse map, Vana could see the effects spreading outward like ripples in a pond. Timeline after timeline began to destabilize as the cascade failure propagated through the quantum foam. But something else was happening too. The forced integration between her timeline and the Admiral's was beginning to reverse. The barriers between realities were strengthening as the Nexus's influence weakened. "Arya," she gasped through the pain of existing in 11 dimensions simultaneously, "are you recording this?" "Every quantum fluctuation, Captain, but you need to let go before the cascade reaches critical mass." "Not yet. The integration has to be completely reversed, or the Admiral will just start over with a new ship." Through the chaos of the cascade failure, Vana could see deeper into the structure of the multiverse than any human had ever seen before. The infinite branching paths of possibility stretched out before her, each one representing a different way reality could unfold. And at the center of it all was a truth that made her gasp with understanding. The multiverse wasn't random. It was evolving, growing, learning from each iteration. Every timeline that developed unique solutions to universal challenges contributed to the overall structure of existence. The hegemony's absorption of alternate realities wasn't just conquest, it was preventing the multiverse from achieving its full potential. "She's reached quantum saturation," Reese shouted over the alarms. "The cascade is propagating into our own timeline." On the displays, Vana could see the effects spreading through hegemony space. The careful order that the Admiral had imposed on her reality was beginning to come apart as quantum fluctuations disrupted the control systems that maintained social stability. 17 conquered star systems were suddenly experiencing the return of something they'd forgotten: uncertainty. "Admiral to quantum chamber," the PA system crackled with barely controlled panic. "Report status immediately." "The integration target has initiated a cascade failure," Reese replied. "Quantum field generators are approaching critical overload. Recommend immediate evacuation of all personnel." "Negative. Contain the cascade and restore system stability." "That's an order." But it was already too late. The quantum field generators were feeding energy back into themselves, creating a loop that grew stronger with each iteration. The carefully maintained barriers between the absorbed timelines were beginning to collapse, allowing the conquered realities to reassert their independence. Through her connection to the quantum matrix, Vana could feel the liberation spreading. Worlds that had been forced into the hegemony's rigid order were suddenly remembering what it meant to make their own choices. Scientists were questioning their assigned research projects. Artists were creating works that expressed individual vision rather than collective purpose. Citizens were looking up at the sky and wondering what lay beyond their controlled existence. "Captain," Arya's voice was fading as the quantum interference increased. "The cascade is reaching the threshold for universal collapse. You have to let go now." "Not until I'm sure," Vana replied through gritted teeth. "The Admiral has backup systems, alternative methods. This has to be complete." The chamber was dissolving around her as reality became negotiable. She could see through the walls of the Nexus, through the twisted space around the Void Heart, into the command center where Admiral Koresh was frantically trying to regain control of her empire. "Security teams to the quantum chamber," the Admiral's voice carried desperate authority. "Terminate the interference source by any means necessary." But the security teams were encountering problems of their own. As the cascade failure spread through the ship systems, the controlled harmony that had defined life aboard the Nexus was breaking down. Crew members were beginning to question their orders. Equipment was malfunctioning as quantum fluctuations disrupted its programming. The perfect order of the hegemony was revealing itself to be as fragile as it was comprehensive. "Vana," the Admiral's voice came from directly behind her, "release the Matrix immediately. You're going to destroy everything we've built." Vana turned, still maintaining her grip on the quantum stabilizers. Her counterpart stood in the chamber doorway, weapons trained on her but uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "That's the point," Vana replied. "Your perfect order is built on the suppression of choice. When people can't choose, they stop being human. Choice leads to chaos. Chaos leads to suffering. I've seen what happens when people are free to make their own decisions." The Admiral's voice carried the weight of old trauma. "Billions die. Civilizations fall. Everything good and beautiful is destroyed by short-sightedness and selfishness. Some choices are wrong. Some paths lead to disaster. But that's what makes the right choices meaningful." Vana could feel the quantum cascade reaching its peak, reality itself beginning to reshape around the focal point of her will. The multiverse isn't supposed to be optimized. It's supposed to be free. Freedom is a luxury we can't afford, not when the stakes are existence itself. Freedom is the only thing that makes existence worthwhile. The philosophical divide between them was unbridgeable, carved by different responses to the same fundamental trauma. The Admiral had chosen security at the cost of choice. Vana was choosing uncertainty at the cost of safety. "Arya," she whispered, "initiate final phase." "Captain, that will destroy the Nexus entirely. The explosion will collapse the Void Heart and take both of us with it." But it will also sever all connections between the Admiral's timeline and every other reality in the multiverse. She'll be trapped in her perfect order, unable to spread it to anyone else. Through the quantum matrix, Vana sent a final signal to the field generators, not just a cascade failure but a complete reversal of their function. Instead of weakening dimensional barriers, they would strengthen them to the point where interdimensional travel became impossible. The Admiral seemed to understand what was happening. You're sealing us off, making it so we can never reach other timelines again. I'm giving the multiverse a chance to develop naturally. Your timeline will continue on its chosen path, but it won't be able to force that path on anyone else. And your timeline will fall to the Cathara. Your people will die because you chose freedom over survival. Maybe, or maybe they'll find a third option that neither of us could imagine. That's what choice means, the possibility of being surprised by the future. The quantum field generators reached critical overload. Throughout the Nexus, systems began shutting down as the cascade failure propagated through every circuit and conduit. The ship that had been built to consume realities was consuming itself instead. All hands abandon ship, the Admiral commanded over the PA system. This is not a drill. But she didn't move from the chamber doorway. Instead, she lowered her weapon and studied Vana with something that might have been respect. "You know this won't stop me," she said quietly. "I'll find another way, build new ships, develop new technologies. The multiverse is too important to leave unguided." "Maybe. But at least you'll be doing it without the resources of 17 absorbed timelines. And your own people are starting to remember what it means to choose their own path." Vana smiled as alarms continued to sound throughout the dying ship. "That's the thing about freedom. Once people taste it, it's hard to take away again." The Admiral nodded slowly. "Then I suppose we'll discover which of us was right, your way or mine. The multiverse will decide that, not either of us." The quantum field generators exploded in a cascade of exotic energy that tore through the fabric of spacetime itself. The last thing Vana saw before the universe collapsed into brilliant white was her counterpart's face, showing not anger or fear, but something that looked almost like pride. Vana woke up in a medical bay that smelled of antiseptic and hope. Sunlight streamed through a viewport showing the blue curve of Earth against star-filled space. After the twisted geometry of the Void Heart, normal space seemed impossibly beautiful. "Welcome back to our reality," Dr. Vasquez said from beside the bed. "Though I have to admit we weren't sure you'd made it. The quantum signature we received was unusual." "How long was I gone?" 3 days. The Wanderer's dream materialized in our space dock with massive quantum scarring and you unconscious in the pilot's seat. Arya's been explaining what happened, but frankly, some of it sounds like science fiction. Vana sat up slowly, testing her connection to normal three-dimensional existence. The dimensional barriers, are they stable? More than stable. According to our measurements, interdimensional travel has become completely impossible. Whatever you did in that other reality, it sealed off every timeline from every other timeline. We're alone in our universe again. And the Cathara, Vasquez's expression grew grim. Arya provided us with detailed intelligence about their methods. We've issued warnings to every colonial fleet vessel and recalled all ships that had been integrating their technology. The threat is contained for now. For now, they're still out there, still following their harvest protocols, but we're developing countermeasures based on the information you brought back. It won't be easy, but we have a chance." Vana nodded. It wasn't the certainty that the Admiral's approach would have provided, but it was something better, the possibility of finding their own solution, the freedom to succeed or fail on their own terms. "There's something else," Vasquez continued. "Echo stopped transmitting the coordinates, but it's begun broadcasting something new, mathematical sequences that seem to be teaching us, sharing Synthari knowledge without trying to control how we use it." Through the viewport, Vana could see the distant gleam of the artificial planet, its hexagonal surface pulsing with patterns that spoke of infinite complexity and careful restraint. The Synthari had left them a gift, knowledge without coercion, possibility without predetermined outcomes. "Arya," she called. "Present, Captain." The AI's familiar voice responded from the room speakers. "I'm pleased to report that my core programming survived the cascade failure intact, though I should mention that the experience has given me some interesting new perspectives on the nature of choice. Such as, that uncertainty is not a flaw to be corrected, but a feature to be celebrated. The ability to be surprised by the future is what makes existence an adventure rather than an algorithm." Vana smiled. Even the AI had learned something from their journey through the mirror universe. "What's our next assignment?" "Actually," Vasquez interjected, "Admiral Chen has offered you a position leading a new exploration initiative. Something about finding natural solutions to cosmic threats instead of trying to optimize them out of existence. And if I prefer to stay independent, then you stay independent. The choice is entirely yours." Vana looked out at the stars, infinite and uncontrolled and full of possibilities that no one had thought to plan for. Somewhere in another timeline, her counterpart was probably rebuilding her empire, seeking new ways to impose order on chaos. But here in this reality, the future remained unwritten. "I think I'll take some time to decide," she said finally. "After all, that's what choice means, the freedom to be uncertain." Outside the viewport, Echo pulsed with ancient wisdom, sharing the knowledge of gods who had learned that the greatest gift they could give was the right to make mistakes. And in the space between the stars, the universe continued its grand experiment in consciousness, creativity, and the endless possibility of becoming something new. The mirror had been shattered, but that was all right. Sometimes broken things were more beautiful than perfect ones.